Excellent!
Hey, what's shaking YouTube? Thanks again for tuning in to Poor Boys RC. Today, check it out. The TD4 Super Avante. It is built. It is beautiful. So the purpose of today's video is just to get you guys informed so you know exactly what tools you're going to need, any little weird things that came up along the build. So when you get your Avante, you can enjoy the build and get it going ASAP. The first thing to talk about today, guys, is tools. Normally, when you buy a Tamiya and you build a Tamiya, you're going to use a Phillips screwdriver. I know you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be JIS, but let's face it, most of us use a Phillips. This kit does not utilize Phillips screws. You're going to need to get your metric hex drivers out, okay? Another good tip, guys, is you're screwing into a lot of plastic here. I couldn't imagine doing this all by hand. Good idea to have a little power driver like this with just the interchangeable ends. This guy works great and saved me from a lot of that. So that's something to consider. Not a must-have, but a nice thing to have for sure. A must-have will be your metric hex drivers, okay? There's also a portion in the build where you have to glue a little plastic cap, sort of a cover, onto the gearbox. So they ask you to use modeling cement. So if you have modeling cement handy, go ahead and use that. But it's that little plastic cover right there with that little arrow on it. They want you to use modeling cement. I used shoe goo. It's what I had handy. So just a heads up, guys, have some kind of adhesive ready for that. Do not use crazy glue. Does not work well with these plastics. You're going to make a mess out of it. So none of that Gorilla Glue, none of that crazy glue. Use a shoe goo or like a proper modeling cement. It's also very important to note that this chassis does not come with any electronics. So you'll have to supply your own motor, your own speed control, and as usual, your own servo and radio and receiver. I've seen some people discussing online whether you can fit a brushless motor in there, what will fit, what won't fit. I'll tell you guys what I used. I went with the Superstock BZ. You can see that beautiful end bell right there. There's a lot of room up top for motor wires to come out. So if you were to run a brushless, you could easily get your 3 wires out of there. There's a lot of room back there, guys, to run a brushless motor. You're just going to have to configure it and play around with it to make sure that, that you can make it work. But I don't see why you couldn't get a brushless motor in there. Even a 550 can, I think, would fit. You've got quite a bit of room back here. So if you wanted to get fancy, get one of those new motors, the new brushless motors that have the ESC built into it, that might even be an option. Something to consider. As far as speed controllers, most Tamiyas come with a TBLE02S. This kit does not. I opted for my Hobbywing. Is that the 1060? Yeah, the 1060. I love it. Small footprint. It works, does the trick. And as you can see, it fits in there quite nicely. So if you're considering an ESC for this kit, consider the Hobbywing 1060. It's only good for brushed motors, does not work on brushless, but you can use it with LiPo or nickel metal hydride, and it does have a couple different features. I don't know if you can see those little jumpers there, but forward brake, reverse, and then forward to direct reverse. So easily tunable. It's a good little ESC. They're waterproof, they're cheap. What the heck, why not? And while on the subject of electronics, one thing I didn't realize until I bought this kit was that you have to use a low profile steering servo. And no, you can't fandangle it and make a standard size steering servo work. You will need a low profile. That's what I've got in there. You can see how shallow that chassis is. And just with the way that the little mounting arms work, you got to get a low profile. I found this one on Amazon, guys, and it came in 2 days. So something to think about. If your local hobby store doesn't have any in stock, you should be able to find a good low profile on Amazon. And just a quick note, guys, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I would really appreciate it. Throw a thumbs up. Those little things mean a lot to us YouTube content creators. And 73% of you that watch the show aren't subscribed. Please go ahead, click that button. It would mean a ton. Thank you guys so much. Now, one other place, guys, to be particularly careful when assembling the vehicle, when you're working on your shocks, be careful when threading the that lower portion that threads onto the bottom of the shock piston. The threaded portion of the shock piston is really quite long. And when I was threading my the little ball joint bottom doodad there, I think that's the technical term for it. When you're threading that on, I started to strip one of these because I thought it was going to thread all the way up the threaded portion of the rod, of the piston. It only goes up about halfway, okay? So don't go too crazy when threading those on so you don't round out and strip your lower shock mounts. Good tip there. So let's talk about battery options for a hot second, because as you can see, the battery is, I do have a battery in there. It's underneath the front shocks there. It's tucked underneath the speed control. And it's a really interesting way that Tamiya has designed this. Come get a closer look. We're going to open this thing up. I'll show you guys how you access the battery, which battery I have in here, what will fit and what will not fit. So with just a couple of these little pins here, funky looking little body pin, the steering arm comes up like that. It gets out of the way. There's another one right here. Remove that guy right there. Drop that arm off. And then you've got 2 screws holding this upper plate. Just like that. And then this whole thing lifts up. And then you have access to your battery. Now this battery that I'm using is a 2S hard case LiPo. It is shaped like a nickel metal hydride pack would be from back in the day. There it is right there. So you guys know exactly what I'm using. I picked this up on Banggood. I did a video on these, so if you want to know more info on these batteries, scroll back through my videos and you'll see it's called Will It Fit? And I tested these in a bunch of different Tamiya kits. So this one obviously fits beautifully inside here. It's a 4500 milliamp ADC pack. I mean, it's a decent little battery and it does the trick. A couple of you guys were asking if you can fit like a standard 2S LiPo in there. I haven't tried. Let's try it right now. So here's another 4500 milliamp, but this time we're looking with a square hard case LiPo. Let's see if I can. And just like that, guys, at a quick glance, that battery seems like it fits. I don't see it binding anywhere. It's a tight fit. I would like to spend some more time off camera and route my battery cables up through the back so they're not interfering with anything in the front. But yeah, it looks like you can fit a standard 2S LiPo in there, which is pretty neat. So we know what'll work in terms of the stock battery mounting location. Now, Tamiya did something interesting with this, and I didn't really even realize this was a thing until I started putting it together. I noticed you can also mount a battery pack widthwise through the chassis. Check this out. So if you look closely here on the side of the chassis, guys, you see that little slot right there. There's that one right there, and there's one on the opposite side. And that's just a filler piece that you put in. It's part of the kit, and it fills in a hole in the side of the chassis. Now, I don't want to take it all apart right now, but that's a separate piece you have to fill in. Now, on the parts trees, there are these 2 parts. This is on the A tree, part number 30. What does that look like to you? This big guy right here. So this guy, from what I gather, I can pop this guy off the tree. And if I remove this, there are these 2 little provisions right here, and I could go like that. This guy would sit right in there beautifully, and that's going to hold a LiPo battery. It's even got the little provision in the center for the wires and the balance cable. So there was nothing in the instruction manual about this. They didn't talk about it at all. I just find that kind of interesting because when I was building this, I did some testing with it, and this fits a modern square 2S LiPo hard case. It fits right in and fits in across the chassis like that. Fits perfect. So I'm not sure what the Tamiya designers are thinking there. You guys, as you're building these, just keep that in mind, because this piece right here on your A tree, again, is going to pop right in. I'm sure you can put a couple extra screws in there, and bam, now you can hold your battery in the other way, which will not only change your weight distribution, but it'll be a lot more convenient because let's face it, having to take 2 screws out, 2 body pins, and lift your whole suspension out to change a battery is kind of a pain in the butt. So that is something to keep in mind. And other than that, guys, this kit is really nice and straightforward to put together. I don't think there's anything else that really struck me as unusual. So just follow the instructions closely because there are some interesting little bits and pieces that, I mean, this kit's different. It's a brand new chassis. It's not like a, you know, an M chassis or a TT02 or something that's been redone and we've all built, you know, a half dozen of them. This is something brand new. So just take your time, really read through the instructions, and really enjoyable build, guys. A lot of fun and just a couple little things to look out for. And a huge shout out and a huge thank you to the RCL. Thanks so much, man. I really do appreciate it. If you can't tell from the giant grin on my face, I love this buggy, dude. It's awesome. Thanks, dude. I really, really do appreciate it. Hope you guys found today's video informative. If you did, again, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate it if you did. And as always, guys, be excellent to each other.